Hello, welcome yogis. My name is Erin and this is my YouTube channel, Yoga with Erin RYT. You can also find me on Facebook in my donation-based yoga group. Really happy to be here today for a mini workshop. It's been a while since I've offered one of these. And this week, based on the request from some of my regular Zoom and studio students, this workshop will focus on Shalamba Sirsasana, or headstand, and headstand prep. So first things first, we will do a little bit of a warm-up before we get into some pose exploration. But if you are completely cold, haven't warmed up at all, and are actually wanting to try headstand today, I invite you to pause this, do 3, 4, 5 rounds of sun salutes or any other warm-up that you would like. So I'll give you a moment to pause if you like. And then whether you took a pause to warm up or not, we'll just start here in a comfortable seat. We'll take a few moments to talk through some of the aspects of this pose. So just find a way you can be comfortable and no particular props needed. You don't even need a yoga mat for headstand, although for most of us that can be most comfortable. So meet me here in a seat. For a lot of us, poses that are inversions like headstand, handstand, shoulder stand can seem really daunting and challenging. I definitely have related to that throughout my own practice. And in studio classes, there's not often time to break down poses. So today we'll really take the time to understand what's happening in headstand variations and what to work on if that's something you're striving toward in your yoga practice, as well as some of the benefits you can expect from exploring headstand on a regular basis. So quickly, a little bit of history. Headstand is interesting. In the classical Hatha yoga tradition, which is older than our modern version of studio yoga, headstand was actually thought of as a mudra. And mudras, as you may know, are arm positions and hand binds that evoke different connections to the energetic self. You're probably most familiar with Anjali Mudra, palms at heart center. So just to know that in the classical tradition, balancing upside down on the head and hands was considered a mudra in itself. In our modern yoga practice, it's also considered an asana. Asana is Sanskrit for pose or posture, and you'll hear that word asana at the end of almost every yoga pose. So in this case, Shalamba Sirsasana. So let's break that down. Shalamba means supported, same first word as supported shoulder stand. And then Shirsha in Sanskrit means head. So Shalamba Sirsasana, supported headstand or supported balancing on the head. That's where the name comes from. And it's often thought of the pose of all poses in the sense of the multifaceted benefits you get, mind, body, and all sorts of other benefits off the mat through a regular practice with headstand. In particular, requires a lot of focus, a lot of discipline to consistently practice over and over again, and a lot of focus on the process rather than the outcome. So I encourage you to approach this, especially if you're brand new to headstand, focus on the slow and steady steps, the process, rather than completely inverting all at once. So moving on from that background, in terms of an asana, we'll approach headstand today as a pose. It is an inversion pose. And an inversion pose means that the heart is above the head. So other inversions would be shoulder stand, hand stand, forearm stand. Poses like legs up the wall or legs straight up aren't quite inversions because the heart and head are still at the same level, but they are great prep toward working toward headstand. In terms of what Shalamba Sirsasana and all of its variations strengthen in the body, just to name the key areas, doing headstand strengthens the vertebral column or the spine and the neck. It tones the legs, arms, and abs. When you're inverted in headstand, everything is drawing toward the midline, whole body's engaged. It also strengthens the lungs. Given the inverted nature of this shape, You're drawing breath from that deepest part of the lungs, that bottom third of the lungs that we don't often use in our daily life, especially, here in the West. In terms of some prep poses, and we'll have a chance to explore these in our bodies in a moment, but for those of you yogis who are interested in exploring this on your own time as well, here are some key prep poses or poses that can help to strengthen and open the right areas of the body to make headstand more accessible. First off, Adho Mukha Svanasana, or downward facing dog. So take a moment here, I'll get into the pose. Downward facing dog might not seem related to headstand, but in fact, we have a long neutral spine, we have active engaged legs, we have deep breath control, and we have everything drawing in toward the midline as we cinch the rib cage in and up. So that's a great pose. When downward facing dog feels like a resting shape, you're more on your way toward accessing inversions like headstand. Other good prep poses, Phalakasana, plank. So plank pose, whether you explore plank with knees lifted or lowered, is a great way to engage the core, engage the side obliques, maintain that long neutral spine, that long line from back of the head to heels, but also strengthen the shoulders, arms, and legs. Beyond down dog and plank, the full shoulder stand sequence, Shalamba Sarvangasana, is a great prep for headstand. So for most of us, the shoulder stand sequence will be a little more accessible than headstand. Dolphin pose, Shishulasana. This is a great pose to build shoulder and arm strength, but also to work on that openness through the chest while engaging the muscles along the spine. If you're newer to dolphin, you start off in tabletop, send the hips up and back. So you're kind of in down dog with your forearms parallel, planted on the mat. And from there, starting to walk your toes toward the elbows. So you start to simulate that sense of getting hips over shoulders. So we have down dog, plank, shoulder stand, dolphin, and then also forward folds in general. We need to have nice open hamstrings, the backs of the legs, not to hold the pose, but to be able to get into the pose, to be able to walk the legs toward the face and get the hips over the shoulders. So a couple good examples of forward folds are Uttanasana, standing forward fold, where you're releasing the tension from the back of the neck, drawing weight forward to the toes, opening through the backs of the legs. And then another variation, Prasarita Padottanasana, our wide-legged fold. Same mechanics, but with legs apart. And again, drawing weight forward, opening through the backs of the legs. So in your home practice, those are great poses to explore. And the good news is we do a lot of those poses in our regular yoga classes. So I often get questions from folks about, okay, what do I need to do to get into a headstand? Really show up to your yoga practice. If you have a practice 3 days a week and you're engaging in these regular poses often, you will build the strength, balance, and confidence to start to invert. So with that in mind, prep poses, also want to take a moment to mention counter poses. So counter poses are poses or movements or shapes that we take after a particular asana, after a particular pose, to release and relax the muscles in the body. So really important when we invert, we're engaging the neck, the shoulders, we might be putting some strain on the head. First thing after inverting is to find a neutral spine. So it can be tempting to want to round the spine and fold forward right after an inversion. I invite you to take a few breaths first in something like downward facing dog. Long neutral spine here. 5 or so breaths this way, before then lowering the knees and finding child's pose, Balasana, where you get that nice rounding through the back. So if this is something you're exploring at home, or even if you're already a seasoned practitioner of headstands, always remembering to take a down dog and then take a child's pose to keep the spine and neck healthy. All that in mind, Beyond the poses we can use to prepare for headstand and the counter poses, what are some of the other benefits we can expect from practicing Shalamba Sirsasana? Main benefit, due to the inverted stance of the body, is a relieving of the buildup of fluid in feet and legs. So especially if you're someone who's on your feet a lot, if you have diabetes, if you have things that lead to swelling of the veins in the legs and feet, this can be really beneficial. Also stimulates that deepest third of the lungs, which I mentioned earlier. And then on a more subtle body and mental level, inversions allow us to actually invert our perspective from what it feels like to breathe upside down, what it feels like to have our eyes open, look at the world upside down, but also on a more subtle level here, really allowing us this space of quiet, stillness, and focus through which we might be inspired, become grounded. All sorts of yogis have written about this. So if you're interested, you can certainly look up texts on that topic. All right. So all of that kind of verbal context in mind, let's get to it. We'll do a brief warm up here, just getting the blood flowing a bit. And then 2 options for you at home. You are welcome, if you are brand new to Shalamba Sirsasana, to just simply watch and maybe try this workshop again later and engage with your body. If you're ready to engage physically, then join me in that way. To begin, we will start in tabletop pose. So coming onto hands and knees. And I'll invite you not to have a blanket or other props under the knees or on the mat today, as we won't want that for our headstand work. Shoulders over wrists, hips over knees, and then tuck all 10 toes. We'll take a few rounds of cow-cats. Inhale, drop the belly, lift the chest, Marjaryasana. Exhale, tuck and round, Bitilasana. Inhale, moving through cow pose. Exhale to cat. Once more, inhale, arch through the spine. Exhale, tuck and round. And then meet me in neutral tabletop. Start to knit up through the rib cage, pulling everything up and away from the floor. Engage your core. Deep inhale, press through the palms. And on the exhale, send the hips up and back. Walk your feet back for downward facing dog. Adho Mukha Svanasana. Remember, this is one of our prep poses for headstand. Already feeling the head come below the heart here. Make sure palms are shoulder distance apart. And then energetically send your heels to the mat. This is a very similar shape we'll have when we walk our feet in toward headstand. Shift your gaze back towards your big toes. And then next inhale, roll forward to plank. Phalakasana. A couple notes here on plank. We often lift our buttocks as high as the back of the head. We actually want a long, flat shape from back of the head to heels. Plank pose named for our backs being as flat as a plank or a board. Good, and again, another wonderful prep pose for inversions. Deep inhale here. Exhale, hips up and back, downward facing dog. A few deep rounds of breath here, pushing the hips back and drawing weight out of the wrists by pressing through all the knuckles of the palms. Next, inhale, roll back to plank. Just a breath. Exhale, hips up and back. From down dog, inhale, come on the toes and start to tiptoe slowly toward the hands, making your way toward a forward fold, lifting through the hips. Pull the belly in. Then meet me at the top of the mat. Uttanasana, forward fold. Let the head and arms hang heavy. Gently sway side to side. Once more, experiencing a mild inversion here. Head coming below heart. Breathe in deeply. And then find some stillness. Fold forward through center. Take a deep bend in the knees. and spread through the toes. Next, inhale, slowly roll up. Exhale, head and shoulders come back, and meet me in Tadasana, mountain pose. So we'll take a minute here in Tadasana. I want you to think about Tadasana as an upside down headstand. So other than the hand position here, very similar to headstand when we invert. Whole body is engaged. And take an inhale here. On the exhale, relax the body. Shake out all the muscles, get wiggly. And then spread the toes, ground through the feet. This time, take an inhale, lift the shoulders up. Exhale, roll them back, squeeze the inner thighs together, squeeze the glutes together, tuck the tailbone under, pull the belly in and up, reach the arms down, and then squeeze your shoulder blades together. Imagine you're drawing your shoulder blades toward the tailbone. Good, legs are active here. So hold on to this muscle memory. We want this same full body engagement when we flip upside down. One more inhale. Exhale, release, shake it out. And then from the top of the mat, inhale, arms out and up, palms touch. Exhale, swan dive forward. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, step to plank. Move through a flow on your breath. Meet me back in downward facing dog. Adho Mukha Svanasana. 2 deep breaths in down dog, lengthening through the spine. Imagining through the breath, you're creating space between the vertebrae. As we move toward our headstand prep, make sure to keep the breath moving. One more inhale in down dog. And on the exhale, lower to the knees and come back to tabletop pose. So again, you're welcome to follow along here, or you're welcome to watch and just listen the first time through. Shoulders over wrists, hips over knees. And then from here, lower to the elbows, elbows under shoulders. And then plant the arms parallel. So we're kind of in a dolphin shape here. Tuck all 10 toes behind you. From here, bring your left hand right to where your right elbow is. And then bring your right hand to where your left elbow is. So we're doing this to get a measurement. We want our elbows the same distance apart as the length of a forearm. From here, plant each palm right where your elbows were. And then start to walk your knees forward. Draw the very crown of your head to the mat. Now, when I say the crown of the head, it often means tucking the chin to the chest. We don't want to be here on the forehead or even on the top front third of the head, that nice flat circular part. And then start to make a nice triangle between palms and top of the head. From here, toes tucked to the mat. Before going further, start to press down through the palms. Feel some lift up between the shoulder blades. Draw your elbows toward the ribs. So same elbows as our plank pose, our push-up pose. We don't want elbows coming out. Nice and tucked in here. And maybe this is where you stay today. Next step is to move toward half headstand or Ardha Sirsasana. With the toes tucked, lift the knees up, straighten the legs. So it's kind of like dolphin, but palms are planted, head on the mat. Shift your gaze toward the feet. Keep your legs and big toes together. Walk your feet as close as you can to your hands, starting to feel hips stack over shoulders. Notice if those elbows splayed out, tuck them in. A couple breaths here. We'll take this in stages. See if you can draw some weight off the top of your head. One more inhale. And on the exhale, walk your toes back out. Lower your knees. Come back to tabletop. Take a round or two of cow-cats. Reset your breath. And we'll try that a second time with an option to go further. Meet me back in neutral tabletop. And then we'll find our arm position again, lowering to forearms, elbows under shoulders. Cross your left hand to where your right elbow is, right hand to left elbow. So that's the distance you want between your elbows here. Place your palms where your elbows were. Walk your knees toward the backs of your hands. Lower the crown of the head to the mat, making a triangle, a tripod between head and hands. Draw your elbows toward the ribs. Tuck your toes. Deep inhale. On the exhale, lift the hips up. Start to tiptoe the toes toward the wrists. From here, maybe you stay here. Maybe you bring right knee to the back of your right tricep. Explore what that feels like, really engaging through the core. And then lower the right toes, maybe left knee to the left tricep, making that nice 90-degree angle with the arms. Maybe both knees come to the backs of the triceps. If you go there, pull your big toes together. Use your exhales to pull the belly in and up. If you're feeling stable without kicking up, maybe draw the knees to the chest, becoming a little egg here. Maybe straightening legs all the way up. Remember your mountain pose, full body engagement. If you do invert fully, press through the balls and heels of the feet. Make sure your big toes stay touching, but spread your toes wide. Striving to stack the arch of the foot right over the pelvis. Pelvis right over the crown of the head. Leave space here to explore if you like. When you're ready to come down, draw the knees back to the chest with control. And then lower your toes to the mat. Tiptoe your feet back. Lower to hands and knees. And then we'll take our counter poses here. First, downward facing dog. Press the hips up and back. Feel that length through the spine. Breathing deeply here. Let the back of the neck fully relax. Adho Mukha Svanasana. And take one more inhale. On the exhale, lower to the knees, sit the hips back, and then reach your arms back here. Traditional child's pose, giving shoulders a rest, forehead to the mat, and breathe. Feel that nice rounding through the lower back, and then take notice of any effects, sensations you're feeling here, whatever variation you explored with Shalamba Sirsasana. Sometimes with challenging inversions, expectations come up in the mind, in the body. So just notice, remembering that it's the process that matters. In yoga, we call this process a tapas practice, or a practice of discipline, consistency, doing the same small effort over and over again. From child's pose, press your way back to hands and knees. And then come all the way to a seat on the mat. Come back to your comfortable seat, maybe Sukhasana, legs crossed, or Ardha Padmasana, half lotus. Nice effort, whether you watched or participated, good for you for exploring this practice of headstand. So to recap, we talked through some of the prep poses, we talked through the counter poses, we talked through some of the benefits of practicing headstands. That is just one version of headstand. So technically that tripod headstand with that triangle between crown of the head and palms is Shalamba Sirsasana 3. There's also a version of headstand, Shalamba Sirsasana 1, where you interlace the hands behind the head. Same mechanics, draw the knees to the chest, maybe send the legs straight up. The tripod version can be harder to get into, but a lot more stable to stay balanced. So a lot of students like to start with that one. Once you're up, you have a nice foundation through the palms and head. The version with the hands behind the head can be easier to get up, harder to balance once you're up. So for those that are interested in practicing this at home, 10 key cues to keep in mind as you move toward fully lifting legs straight up over the torso. So we'll start from the ground up, imagining your hands and head on the ground, feet toward the sky. First, elbows, forearm distance apart. So we practice that, measuring that space. Second, top of the head on the mat, not the front of the head. Third, shoulder blades lifting toward the tailbone. So when we're standing upright, we often talk about drawing our shoulder blades down. When we're inverted, we're wanting to reach our shoulder blades up so they come toward the tailbone, toward the butt on the body. Fourth, engage the core. I can't say that one enough. And the core doesn't just mean these muscles in the front, also those muscles that wrap along the ribs on the sides. 5, tailbone lifting up toward the heels. So again, when you're inverted, your feet are higher than your tailbone, tucking and lifting the tailbone up. That's what draws that weight out of the head, gives you that sense of levity. 6, stacking the pelvis over the crown of the head. Shoulder stand is a great way to practice this, working toward full headstand inversion. 7, arches of the feet lined over pelvis. So we have arches of the feet, pelvis, head, all in one nice straight line. 8, toes spread, but big toes touching. So it's common that we let our legs splay apart when we invert, working to keep legs together, big toes touching, but spread through your toes. 9, pressing up through the balls of the feet as well. This is often referred to as Barbie feet. Not my favorite analogy here, but you get the idea. Both spreading through your toes, so we're not pointing, we're not flexing, we're pressing the whole foot toward the ceiling. And then last, but certainly not least important, is breath. You need to breathe to maintain that inversion. And if you're looking to build a regular headstand practice, start with working up to 5 breaths, holding your headstand for 5 consistent breaths. And don't forget your counter poses, your rest afterward. Well, that's been our mini workshop on Shalamba Sirsasana, supported headstand. I hope you enjoyed, and do share your feedback. You can leave a comment. You can find me on Facebook at Erin Carroll, or join my donation-based yoga group on Facebook. And on that note, if you would like to donate to support these ongoing classes, workshops on YouTube and Zoom, you can donate by PayPal and Venmo to Freelancer PhD, FREELANCER Take care. Thank you. Mil gracias. Namaste.